This is Channel 1 America Breaking News. Let's go immediately to a news conference in Idaho.
The evacuation cell last night for the shelter in place. They said they didn't get a phone call, they didn't get a text. How was your text that went out, or how did you let people know?
Yes, absolutely. Part of our Kootenai alerts system, we sent out a text, I believe, a 5-mile radius, and I encourage people who live or frequent the area to sign up for Kootenai alerts. So
that's an opt-in service?
well, yes, yep. Gentleman in the blue.
Sure. The welfare checks that you guys initiated,
Yep.
were they given by a relative? Did a parent call you to check on him? Or are they concerned about his mental health?
No, it was generally a reporting party who called and saw a vehicle that was either parked near their property or on their property. One was a restaurant where he appeared to be residing at. He was asked to leave and he complied. So none of them that we have at this time were called in from a relative. They were called in from a property owner or passerby. The gentleman there in the...
Sheriff, can you describe the weapon that you found next to?
It appears right now we have a shotgun that was used, but we're still processing the scene.
So obviously a shotgun is not a sniper weapon.
Correct.
Do you know what kind of weapon that was?
Well, we're still processing the scene, but let me kind of set the scene for everybody. When you're in a rural area and you're heavily treed, heavily brushed, and when you're taking fire, then it just adds a whole different dynamic to the situation. So what was reported by people on scene, by peace officers on scene, that they believed they were taking sniper fire, yes. And that's where that is. Lady in the black.
Hi. Was he a suspect before you found him, or did you not identify him until after you found his remains?
Can you give me that first part again?
Was he a suspect prior to finding his body, or were you not sure who he was until after you found his remains?
Well, we had information that we had an idea who that person might be, but we always defer to the coroner's office to make sure that we have a positive identification on the individual. People borrow people's car, people use people's phones. Yeah, so we always want to make sure that we have a positive identification before we make any type of release. So this lady.
Are you able to identify yet if calls 911?
Still under investigation. If the investigation, but we have an individual and not use the suspect's name. So.
One more clarification, because I think I misunderstood.
There was an interaction with the firefighters.
When they first arrived on the scene?
Correct.
What was that then?
It had something to do with his vehicle being parked where it was. So, yeah. The gentleman in the blue in the back.
Sure. Can you tell us what type of
Right. Well, we know that some rifled slugs were used, and a rifled slug is a pretty big projectile. Anybody know off the top of their head how many grains a rifled slug is? Oh,
1 ounce.
yeah. So generally going to be a 1 ounce piece of metal. But we also have some fragmentation of something. So it's still early on. You know, we have some smaller projectiles, and we don't know if that was a fragmentation of one of the rifled slugs or another weapon. Like I said, we are still processing that scene. The firefighters are putting water on, so we're still processing that. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, can you tell us how sophisticated you think this ambush was? Or do you think this was an interaction that went badly? And one more thing, we were just right outside the scene, and we saw a firefighting vehicle come down with 3 completely flat tires used. Was that part of the ambush?
No, part of once the rounds started to exchange back and forth, and when deputies got on scene, part of the theory was we don't want him to be able to circle back around and get into either one of the fire trucks or his own vehicle. So deputies disabled the trucks, and they pushed over the suspect vehicle off the side of the mountain.
I mean, that just gives you a sense of how chaotic the moment must be.
Oh, yeah,
They're
yeah.
disabling, crippling your own vehicles, so the suspect that's unseen and elusive wouldn't be able to circle back and use it.
Right, and we just don't, we just don't know in many cases, even if it's in an urban setting in a retail shopping center, how many suspects there are, because we're going to get different information, and we have to be able to evaluate that information to see what's credible, what's not credible. We always want to err on the side of caution, but initial reports, there was more than one suspect. Right here in the.
I just want to make sure I'm completely clear on this. So at the moment, as things stand as far as the weapons go, you were confident that he used a shotgun. It's possible that he used another weapon. You're not absolutely sure, and you don't know what that other weapon would be. Is that right?
Yeah, we're still processing the scene. So we know that there was a shotgun used. Absolutely. 100%. We know that for sure. So.
Training or any type of
We cannot find any evidence that he had any type of survivalist training. Now, he did grow up in from what we understand, he did grow up in a arborist family, and that they climb trees. And we did have reports that he was shooting at first responders via a tree. So he does have experience climbing trees.
I also just wanted to clarify, you had said in the previous press conference, you were talking about misinformation. This is kind of going off the beaten path, but can you elaborate a bit on what that misinformation was? And I guess it felt like you had said families were finding out via Facebook, and I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so what happened, firefighting and EMS channels here in Kootenai County are not, what's the word I'm looking for? Encrypted. Law enforcement channels are encrypted. So pretty quickly, there was audio of the help call that came out and was broadcasted on social media, and that is just really, really hard on the families. Had they heard that, and I don't know if they did or, but had they heard that, they would be able to identify their voice of their loved one, and just make a chaotic situation more chaotic. So that's one of the.
I just want to be clear, none of the families were notified through social media. They were.
I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of it. Yeah, I do not know. Lady in the black there.
Sure. In terms of just the timeline, I know they provided us with one already, but where does that interaction, that first interaction with firefighters fit there? After interaction, how soon after that is there gunfire?
There was an interaction. So they arrived on scene. The initial call was about approximately 1:20. They arrived on scene. I'm going to guesstimate, but I would say probably about 13:50 or about 10 minutes until 2 o'clock. Somebody.
One question I have is, you mentioned when you were doing welfare checks, what were those interactions like? Was the suspect just acting normal? Was there anything off about him at all during any of those interactions, or was there anything that stuck out for those?
Yeah, he cooperated on each one. He was told that, hey, the owner is asking you to leave. He left. There's certain criteria that we have to meet to be able to engage in somebody's well-being, and he did not meet requirements at the time. So, yeah. Jeremy?
Bishop's body, is it in a condition where we can determine if there's some drugs or medication in the system?
That'll be part of the autopsy, yes.
How long he was here in Idaho, and also just, I know this is like a popular recreation area, so how many people, just members of the public, may have been up there doing all this hiking and just enjoying the day?
Well, it is a popular trail. As far as how many people actually, Lieutenant Klinkefus, do you have any idea of how many people might use it's like 25 miles of trail up there.
Yes, sir. On a Sunday afternoon, there could be a couple hundred citizens up there. Folks use dirt bikes up there. They hike, mountain bike, e-bikes, very popular. I don't know exactly how many were there at that moment. There could have been several hundred on the mountain at that time.
Were they rescued, with law enforcement jumping, helping rescue and get them out?
There were people that were still coming down the mountain, and this is at approximately 30 hours, or about 3:30 yesterday. So people were still coming off of the mountain.
Sheriff, did the Instagram photo that or the story, excuse me, that you gave us, was his Instagram deleted? His social media has been wiped now, or is that by your doing, or I mean, what was?
Preliminary information is that we believe it has been wiped, but we don't know. Rust color.
Can you tell me what sort of role in what played out yesterday? Would you have been able to do this without them?
They were very, very helpful in providing assets, providing ground assets, providing aerial assets. Like I said yesterday, we did have 2 helicopters that had a sniper in them. Very, very helpful in real-time location of the suspect's phone. That was very helpful. And they were there not to take over anything. Each one of them came up to us and said, what can we do to help? The resource. So we believe they were very, very helpful.
Sheriff, could you describe those social media posts that are now no longer online? Of course, we've got, but we can't see those posts now.
Right. Like I said, it's either they've been removed or the account has been deleted. So we don't know. We know at one time it was there, but now we know it's gone. So I don't know what previous posts were there.
Sheriff, has the suspect's family been contacted, and if so, are they cooperating with the investigation at all?
The family knows of the situation, and they're still processing the situation also. Yeah.
Sheriff, is this the camo outfit that you guys found him in?
No, this is a previous post.
And then has the ATF been able to help you guys pinpoint, like, when he had that shotgun? Have you guys been able to trace back where he had that shotgun?
We haven't there yet, yeah. Like I said, it's still pretty hot up there, but we'll get all that information. We just don't have that as of right now.
They had snipers in the air, yeah, people were recreating up there, coming off of that. How do you deal with that?
Well, it does provide a challenge in the rural area like that, but obviously we would not. We want them to identify the target first before they took any action. But it was an active shooter situation, and we have radio traffic where there was an exchange of gunfire between suspect and deputies. So we want to make sure that we have target identification before we use any type of lethal force. So.
Are you more convinced that today than you were yesterday? And can you describe, we've heard that the fire was closing in to the scene and light. Can you describe? Like,
Yeah, they said that the fire approached within 50 feet. And at that time, it was a determination was made that we should probably remove the body and take what we can, and then remove from the area. So that was the decision that was made at the time.
So you're going through a crime scene right now that has been burned over by fire.
Yeah, it's not the perfect situation, but sometimes you have to make the best choice, and that was the best choice at that time. All right. Anybody?
Just a clarifying question, was he in the tree when he talked to the firefighters who asked him, or you sort of walk us through sort of make that up?
We don't believe he was in the tree at the time, but we believe that he engaged deputies from the tree.
And you mean gunfire?
Correct, yeah.
Last night you mentioned that there was a belief that he could be running from spot to spot. Has that been determined that he was moving actively across the mountain?
Still under investigation. You know, we want to make sure that we do a complete search of that area, that there's no guns left over. So still under investigation.
And then, is there anything you want the public to really understand about this, or do you want them to not do, or any kind of notice?
Well, we're still processing the whole situation, but until the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department and the Kootenai County Fire Search and Rescue, until they put out a press release on where to give, I would encourage people to wait for that. There is one particular entity called they just changed their name, but it's called Kootenai County Blue Line. I know them for a fact. I know that the board of directors do not take any money from them whatsoever, but I can anticipate we'll probably have people that are going to take advantage of this situation and try to scam people out of money for it. So I would encourage people to wait until there's an official press release from both of those entities on where to give.
Sheriff, really early in the wildfire investigation, but is there an indication that he lit them in multiple areas, multiple spots on the mountain, or does it seem to have stemmed from one spot?
Yeah, right now we're still trying to contain it. It's not contained at this time. So until we can get it contained and get some investigators up there, then we just don't know at this time.
Sheriff, are there 300 people that reports 300 law enforcement involvement?
Yep.
It's a war zone up there. How many shots were fired?
Well, we don't know exactly how many shots were fired at this time, but at the beginning of this event, we knew that it was tragic, and we knew that there were reports that there were multiple shooters. Whether that turns out to be or not, in an operation like this, you always want to plan and prepare for the largest event, and then it's easy to scale down. But if you don't prepare for the larger event and you need more resources, it's not a good situation. So the train of thought is always prepare for a larger event. But in this particular case, an active shooter in a rural area, that just provides a lot of different challenges. And I know that Captain Heil, part of the strategy was that we're going to protect that west side of that mountain because that's where the homes are, and we're going to have probably triple as many personnel on that side. And if he wants to go east, or if he wants to go in the fire, let him. But there's a lot of different dynamics that you have to consider in a rural containment and a rural active shooter. Jeremy, do you have any questions, or do you have anything you'd like to add on how the challenges of what happened?
Unless there's any specific questions.
Okay.
Sheriff, we often hear about cell phone data being used after crimes to determine locations of people. Were you guys actively, for lack of a better word, pinging him as the crime was unfolding?
Yes.
I hate to, go backwards a bit, but I did see deputies hugging each other and patting each other on the back when I was out there. I'm just kind of wondering what the mindset of your office is right now, and I guess how those first responders are doing after all this.
They're shocked. Absolutely. I'd say they're in shock and they're still processing it. Yeah, they're in shock.
Is there anything in particular you guys are doing for them right now?
Well, we are going to support them in anything that they need. Obviously, getting the families together, and how they want to realize their love, and we will be there. Sure.
Do you have emergency agreements with cell providers for that kind of capability?
Yes. Yeah.
And what do you do to enact that? You just make a call and say, we got to do this? And
There are certain conditions, requirements that need to be met, but this was certainly one of those cases.
Where are the drone units during this whole process?
The drone units were very effective. Each agency that helped us out had their own drone with different capabilities, and in the end we were able to locate and verify where the body was when with the drone from the different agencies that were here. Jeremy Howe, Captain. H-Y-L-E.
All right, we'll take two more questions.
I may have missed it earlier, but what exactly was his connection to Coeur d'Alene?
We just don't know. We know that he was a transient here. We knew he lived here for the better part of 2024. As far as when he got here, why he was here, why he chose this place, I don't know. He has relatives in the Priest River area, but I don't know why he chose that. We don't find any nexus to anything else. Maybe we'll find more once we do an inventory of the vehicle, but as of right now, we don't know. And then one more question.
Are you able to confirm whether or not the firefighters who were shot were the ones who spoke with him, or are you able to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out and sharing this story with the public. So thank you.
Sheriff Bob Norris with the tough task as a law enforcement officer to walk through one of the more heinous crimes that we have seen in many, many years, in fact, decades here in our area. Some of the key points, a lot of brand new information about the suspect. Identified as Wes Rowley, born on May 1st of 2005. Previous residences in California, Arizona, Idaho, and was born in California. Sheriff Norris said they had 5 interactions with him directly of emergency, as he characterized minor issues, welfare, removing a vehicle when somebody living nearby called authorities about a suspicious vehicle. Best they can tell at this time of the suspect, no criminal history. They cannot find any, and they've looked in other states as well. They do have the suspect's vehicle, which they rolled down the embankment so he couldn't get back in and take off. There was a lot of stuff inside. It did appear, according to Sheriff Norris, that he was living in that vehicle. Right now, they do have some erased social media posts on Instagram. They don't know when those were posted or erased. They have those, gained access to those, but right now, according to the Sheriff, no manifesto. The fire started by Rowley, they believe, as an ambush tactic to draw those firefighters in to target them. He had a flint starter that they found. 26 acres. It has not grown recently, slow-moving fire. They expect to have a line around that fire by nightfall tonight. When asked about how he died, the sheriff said, "We believe at this time it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound," and they are looking into a history of, at one time, they gained some knowledge that the suspect, Wes Rowley, wanted to be a firefighter. They don't know if that's connected to what happened yesterday about 1:50 p.m. He had contact with firefighters as they arrived, roughly about 1:50. There was a brief exchange of conversation before he started targeting the firefighters that arrived in an ambush-style attack. The social media, Sheriff Norris calling the source of information, and they are looking and scanning it, and mining it for possible motive, looking for intent. They did find a shotgun. Right now, that is the only weapon that they have confirmed to have found, but that is confirmed to have been used. The fire approaching on the suspect's body. It was within 50 feet of it when authorities made the decision. He said it's not ideal, but they made the decision to get the body and move it to preserve evidence because the fire was moving toward the suspect's body as it was there in the rural area. That is what we learned new in the news conference. We should also tell you there is a news conference scheduled with the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department at 4 o'clock. We will carry that for you in its entirety live as well. We did an indication That's where they will identify officially the 2 fallen firefighters, who they were, how they served, and the injured firefighter that we're told that firefighter is fighting for their lives right now. Let's go over to the Pulse studio and Bradley Warren with some other information that we're learning.
Yeah, Sean, well, I want to let everyone know at home how we're working this story. We want to give people a little bit of context to the way that we are vetting everything as we do this coverage. There's a lot of questions that are, we've seen a lot of misinformation. We're putting something out that's not only backed, but it is secondly confirmed through voice conversation. That is what's going out right now over there and on our websites. Just to be careful, because a lot of what's been published has the potential to do harm, and it's something that we're keeping in front of mind. The sheriff stressed this last evening at one of the press conferences that we were at. A lot of misinformation was being put out either by way of banners or from social media that was ballooning into much bigger and larger conversations. We are being very careful in the way that we're reporting on this. We don't want to add to sensationalization of this story. So our information is not only thoroughly vetted, but we're working very hard to ensure that the questions that you have that you're bringing to us are vetted before they are re-reported. That is our job right here, and that's what we're working to do here at the Pulse Center. So when something comes in, we work it. If it's worthy of bringing to the attention of the masses, then we will put it out. Sean, of course, you know that very well as we continue to follow the situation.
Bradley Warren from the Pulse. Thank you. A reminder, there was a news conference department where they have identified the 2 firefighters and the injured firefighter. We will have that for you live in its entirety. Also want to read a statement as we close here on this breaking story, as we just wrapped up the news conference with Sheriff Norris. On Kootenai County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, it says, Kootenai County, Idaho, following the outpouring of support from our community members, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, I extend felt gratitude to everyone who has stood by fellow first responders and us during this difficult time. Your kindness, encouragement, unwavering support means more than words can express. Together we remain committed to serving and protecting our community with strength and integrity. This has been Breaking News. I'm Sean Housen.
Our Chief National Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Rob. Early afternoon, firefighters a local trailhead what they thought was a routine wildfire. Instead, they became gunfire. A third so hiker shelter in place, but that sniper kept firing hours later. 1:21 p.m. Sunday, and firefighters routine wildfire reaching to this black smoke on the trailhead.
Right now, there's an active shooter zone.
But as firefighters prepare to battle the flames, suddenly shots ringing out from the hills above.
Everybody shot up here.
2 firefighters were killed, another wounded, all of them ambushed.
I'm pinned down behind Battalion 1's rig. It's clear to me that this fire was set intentionally to draw us in.
Sirens heard throughout the neighborhood. Roughly 300 law enforcement and first responders from Idaho and Washington State raced to the scene.
First really started hearing the sirens as far as kind of going up and down there. And immediately just kind of the tension really just kind of went up as far as all around town.
Officials delivering their grim assessment.
We started the fire, and we believe the ambush was intentional.
Doing officers with snipers scanning the cars as authorities tracked cell phone data which stayed in the same spot since 3:16 p.m., eventually finding the man dead with a weapon nearby.
We had to scoop up that body, and we had to transport that body to a different location.
And some were forced to shelter in place for over 4 hours, unable to escape. And then that solemn scene as a procession of law enforcement, firefighters, and ambulances brought the bodies of the 2 fallen firefighters to the medical examiner's office. Officials saying there's simply no training for this kind of situation.
This is something that we don't train for. It's not something we expect. It's not something our firefighters should have to deal with.
And now that tight-knit community left reeling.
Somebody lost their mom or their dad, or somebody's wife or husband isn't coming home tonight.
Now, initially, there was concern that shooters, confirming there was a single shooter and threat to the public. Officials are now focused on determining the identity of the shooter and a possible motive. Officers are still at that scene as firefighters are also working to contain the wildfire that suspect allegedly started. George.
Oh, what a horrible story. Okay, Matt, thanks very much.
A gut-wrenching story out of Idaho. A procession lining the freeway early this morning in Spokane, Washington, saluting the 2 firefighters who lost their lives in an ambush attack, but also sent a 3rd firefighter to the hospital. The as yet unidentified suspect is starting a brush fire in the northern Idaho mountain range in an act to lure first responders to a trap, where he then acted as a sniper to shoot at them once they arrived on scene to fight the blaze. The suspected gunman was found hours after the shooting by police in a wooded area with a weapon near his body. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, here with my co-host Harris Faulkner, and also joining us today, Marie Harf, Fox News contributor, state spokesperson under President Obama, Brianna Scotto, Fox 5 New York anchor and host of the Underground Economy on Fox News, and John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, UC Berkeley law professor, and former Justice Clarence Thomas law clerk. Now first, let's go to Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt, live on the ground in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, with the latest. Jonathan.
Emily, some breaking news for you via the Associated Press, which is now reporting that law enforcement officials are telling them that the identity of the gunman in this tragic incident is Wes Rowley, as the Associated Press reports it. We believe he is in the region of 20 years old. We do not know anything else about that alleged gunman at this point. Meantime, investigators are still trying to piece together everything that happened here. Last night, 2 firefighters who were killed from the mountain here. They were shot dead, having gone to battle a fire around 1:30 p.m. Pacific here, but minutes of arriving found themselves instead facing sniper fire, a hidden sniper opening fire on them, prompting a frantic emergency call from another firefighter. Listen here.
We need law enforcement up here immediately. We've got another Coeur d'Alene firefighter down. We've got 2 unresponsive battalion chiefs, gunshot wounds, multiple gunshot wounds. 2 Coeur d'Alene firefighters are down. I'm pinned down. It's clear to me that this fire was set intentionally to draw us in.
Police, SWAT teams and FBI agents rushed to the scene, around 300 officers in all, and for some time they continued to take sniper fire. Sheriff saying it was clearly a trap that was set. Listen to the sheriff.
You know, when you have a an environment where you don't know where the bullets are coming from because of the trees and the shrubbery and what have you. It is daunting for police officers, let alone firefighters who are there just to put out the fire. So it's very, very difficult. Difficult for drones or helicopters to see any individuals there. So this was a total ambush, taken by surprise.
After several hours, members of a SWAT team discovered the body of a man. He was dead. There was a weapon nearby. The sheriff declared that there was no longer a threat. And just to repeat the breaking news, the Associated Press reporting that the shooter has been identified to them by law enforcement officials as a young man called Wes Rowley. As for the condition of the who was also evacuated from the mountain, he went through emergency surgery last night. Described him as we are told this morning that he is in stable condition. One small piece of good news in this terrible. Emily?
Indeed. Thank you so much. Rosanna, I cannot imagine a worse scenario than our brave first responders rushing to a fire and ambushed, learn that likely the fire was started to lure them in. It's just abjectly terrifying.
And they have custody, or he's now passed. I don't care about him. I don't want to know his motive. I don't want to know his name. I don't want to know his background, his childhood. He killed 2 fighters who were running towards danger. They are unsung heroes. Roadways yesterday as they brought their bodies to the morgue. Those unsung heroes, that's who I want to know about this morning.
Yeah, Harris, I spoke with a few of my friends there in the Northwest who are part of the firefighting community, and they are absolutely and in shock. This is totally unexpected.
When you hear the real-time call for help and that the firefighters on the ground set and they on in, I mean, that's so jarring to know that they're coming fire and they're telling the world what they think. I want to save some of my time for you, John. Is this domestic terrorism?
We don't know yet. I think what we need to have investigation. Unfortunately, we have to know everything about him and his background. In the short term, we need terrorism. Is anybody helping him? Is anybody working with him? That's why the FBI is there, to see if this is part of the law conspiracy. And then I think we have to figure out ways to punish people like this, to stop them. Because I totally agree. We have people rushing in to save people's lives. Mm-hmm. To worry about people doing this, we have ways to deter people from ever doing this in the future. If there are people helping them, 20 years old, apparently, if his parents, then they have to be investigated too. It reminds me of cases of minors who've had guns and done school shootings. And we have had to punish the parents for not reporting them if they've stolen guns, if they shouldn't have had weapons. I think we have to have that kind of full investigation. In the longer run, we have to think about culture. Do we be condemning the shooter and praising the firefighters?
Right. All of that is
We're going to talk later about people who won't condemn terrible speech. Our politicians will condemn.
At the question, are there add-ons legally to a certain category? And you're right, it's too soon to know, but you answered that. Yeah, so we know that there will be, depending on what this is.
Yeah, and there's always enhancements that can be put online and weight. And I note too, first of all, it's a smaller community there, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's rural, it's a tight-knit community, and the first responder community is still reeling with the loss from the deaths there to the firefighters fires a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a community that is still suffering from that, and then to have ambush occur, it just absolutely shocks the conscience.
Emily, I agree. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw this. Think about what the firefighting community has been through. So, think about the LA fires last year. Obviously a different area, but it's one community. Having been through so much devastation. and fires are getting just on their own in the West, and then to have one set to hurt them, I agree with you. It's shocking, and I agree with John. We need to know why. We need to know how to prevent other people in the future, and the investigation is going to. The FBI is there.
Yeah. And depending on the firefighting, many of them, the seasonal and the wildland and volunteer jobs, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they are loved members of the community, and I look forward to learning more about the firefighters that lost their lives, and we are certainly going to break the wonderful condition. Thank God.
Found dead, and now investigation away after what the as an emergency response to a brush fire turned into an ambush. 2 firefighters were killed. The sheriff says a 3rd firefighter was fighting life. All emergency dispatch in the midst of it paint a terrifying scene of the moments they realized that they were under attack.
Law enforcement right now, the active shooter down. BC3's down, BC1's down. Everybody shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here.
The ambush sparked a huge response from law enforcement. More than 300 officers from various agencies and neighboring counties were all called up to help. At one point, officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect, but it was more than 6 hours after that first fire call that his body was found. This morning, fire crews are still working to contain the fire that he allegedly started, still burning on Idaho's Canfield Mountain. CNN's Julia Vargas Jones is live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho with the very latest. What are you learning?
Good morning, Kate. Well, the plan today from authorities is to go back to that location where the body of the shooter was found for further investigations. What are they looking for? They're looking for weapons may or may not have had. They had to remove the body from the location relatively quickly, they said last night in a press conference, because of the threat of that fire. So we have not learned any further details about who this gunman was or what were the weapons that he had with him. But we did hear from the sheriff of here in Coeur d'Alene talking about the very nature of the attack and what that was like for the firefighters that were responding on the scene.
Total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance. When you have an environment where you don't know where the bullets are coming from because of the trees and the shrubbery and what have you, it is daunting for police officers, let alone firefighters there just to put out the fire.
Unimaginable, Kate, what these firefighters went through. And now this community is also left with so many questions as the investigation continues in the coming days. Now, I do want to share with you one interesting detail is that authorities did use his cell phone to ping his location. And as you mentioned, they had exchanged fire with him, but that for another 90 minutes is how they tried to triangulate him until he eventually was neutralized. We don't know how he died. But that fire in that location continues to burn. It is now called the Nettleton Fire, and authorities will be going up today as daylight breaks here.
Much more to learn. Julia, thank you so much for us.
Joining us now is analyst Andrew McCabe. There are a lot of questions. I'm curious from the perspective, your perspective of law enforcement, what questions do you have as you hear this laid out where there was an ambush according to authorities, there were shots going off constantly from the suspect as firefighters were trying to put out a fire that he allegedly caused?
Sure. So there's, as you referenced, a million questions here, and most of them right now for me are focused on the shooter himself. It's not, that person has not been identified. But one of the first things investigators who now are taking kind of the lead with this investigation, since the tactical response has been resolved, the investigators are going to try to determine not just who this person was, but what got him to this point. They're probably preparing to execute search warrants at his residence, maybe that are registered, search those as well. They want to identify family members, friends, work associates, whoever they can, to share insights about this person and to shed light on the motive of how he got into this or provoked this deadly shootout with firefighters. And of course, hovering in the back of their mind is the question: was there anyone else who helped with this? Could there have been another shooter present at that location and participating in the attack? Or could somebody have simply helped him prepare for it, arm himself, that sort of thing? Because you want to know, is there someone else out here who might be like-minded and who might try to stage a similar attack in the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the big fear, or if there are people that see this and decide to be copycats. I am curious if you have ever, in your history in law enforcement, one of the investigators had said, the sheriff actually had said, look, we have seen at times in urban settings, firefighters coming under fire during huge protests or huge riots, but had never seen something like this. Do you recall anything like this ever happening before?
No, not at all. I mean, I think those observations are accurate. I think in large metropolitan areas, sometimes when there's a large fire response in an area that's experienced some sort of disruption, protest activity, things like that, every once in a while you'll have someone takes an opportunistic shot at responding officers that might include firefighters. It's really exceedingly rare, and it doesn't come off as a planned attack. It's just he was angry and doing something essentially. This is the exact opposite of that. This person, if the facts are as they've been laid out by the sheriff, the person deliberately set a brush fire for the purpose of attracting firefighters, not police officers, but firefighters to that scene, and then laid in wait for them using some sort of a high-powered rifle, hunting rifle, sporting rifle, something like that, to try to kill as many of those firefighters as he could. I mean, that is, in my experience there, that's unprecedented certainly in recent law enforcement history.
That's a really good way to put it. And there are 2 firefighters who have been killed, 1 injured in all of this, as police continue to figure out exactly what the motive was behind this, why this person.
You hump? Watch this. I always thought that the weird neck hump was something that happened with 70 or 80, not 40. But then I started noticing it, just this little bump forming at the base of my neck. And at first I ignored it because I thought it was bad posture, no big deal. I'll just stand up straighter, right? But in a few months it actually got worse. I was slouching, my shoulders started rounding, I just looked tired. And honestly, I also started looking older. So one day I caught a reflection of myself in a store and I did a double take and went, I don't recognize myself. But the real gut punch? I was at the grocery store and this little kid behind me whispered to his mom, "Hey mom, why does that man look like Quasimodo?" I kind of laughed in the moment, but inside I was pretty humiliated. 40, and I felt like I was aging in fast forward. So after that, I went into fixing mode and I started Googling everything. Best exercise for best posture braces. Can a chiropractor fix the dowager's hump? So I bought one of those shoulder strap things that you're supposed to pull your back straight, and I felt like I was being strangled by some medieval torture device. So the next thing is I tried a fancy office chair. That was nice for my desk work, but that didn't change. I watched YouTube videos for stretches, and I did them religiously for weeks, and my neck still looked the same. Then I tried one of those foam roller contraption things, and I swear, it made my back sore. The worst part of this is every solution felt like it was temporary or just wishful thinking. I was doing everything right, but it still felt like I was falling apart. So then I decided to go the route, and I appointments. Felt amazing for about a day, but then after a week or two, the hump looked the same. With a massage told for really nice help. Can't afford to keep going twice a week. And in physical therapy, my insurance barely covered. And the sessions were booked weeks so I'm not going to get help. By the time I actually got into a routine, life got in the way. Work deadlines, family stuff, right? I missed a couple appointments, and just like that, I'm back where I started. I was spending money and time I didn't have for results that wouldn't stick. That's when I realized I've got to do something different, something I could actually use every day. It's not going to rearrange my whole life. And at that point, really, I was willing to try anything. So I started digging into forums where people like me were actually looking for answers and results. Same type of thing I was looking for. Over and over again, I kept seeing people mention this one product, the Hug Terra Massager. And at first, I was skeptical because I'd already bought those gadgets, right? I'd already tried those things. But people weren't just recommending it, they were showing photos and videos about how it helped loosen their muscles around the neck and shoulders, how it became a part of their daily routine, it was easy to use, how their neck hump started. It wasn't marketed as a miracle fix, just a tool that actually worked with consistency. So I ordered one. I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I thought, okay, this is just another weird looking gadget. What makes this different? Then I started reading. It turns out it was actually created by Alexander Brown, who's a neurologist, and he started noticing what he calls a neck hump pandemic. It came about because of the lockdown. People were sitting more, moving over their screens all day, and it was totally wrecking their posture. So he built a device that combines 4 proven therapies into one. Most of those neck traction pillows, they only stretch your neck, and honestly, that's not enough. This one, the Terra, it relaxes the muscles first with deep tissue massage and heating therapy. Then it uses EMS, which stands for electrical muscle stimulation. It boosts circulation and wakes up the deep neck muscles. And only then does it gently stretch your neck to that 26 degrees, the magical angle that helps restore the natural curve to your neck. So that's when it hit me. No wonder the other stuff didn't work. You can't just yank your head back and hope for the best. You have to actually fix what's tight, support what's weak, and heal the area. And that is exactly what this device does. So I gave it a shot, 15 minutes a day. And honestly, the first time I used it, I felt something shift. Not dramatic, not some snap or something, but like peace, tension. And I didn't even realize I was carrying that much tension. It just let go. And after a few days, I started noticing my neck feels looser. I'm sleeping better. I'm not waking up in pain anymore. And after a couple of weeks, my posture actually started changing. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, I look like me again. And a month in, someone at work actually said, hey man, have you been working out? You look taller. And I laughed, but inside I was like, yeah, this is working. And it wasn't just about fixing a bump anymore either. It was about standing tall, feeling confident, like I wasn't carrying the weight of the world on my neck. I didn't think something like this would actually help me, but it did. And if you've been dealing with a neck hump, whether it's just starting or it's been creeping up for years, you owe it to yourself to try this. That's what I did. 15 minutes a day, it changed everything. Are you skeptical? I get it. I was too. I tried the braces. I tried the rollers, the chairs, the massage therapist who said, it might help if you keep coming back every week, but this isn't just another gimmick. It was designed by a neurologist who combines 4 therapies that we already know they all work individually. Let's put them together. And if it doesn't help you, Hug Terra is offering a 60-day money-back guarantee. If it doesn't work, you just get your money back. So really, the question is, what do you have to lose? Except the hump. I added a link below the video. If you're interested, click it, check out if it's still in stock. Last time they ran out and it took weeks to restock, so if it's available, I'd recommend getting one now while you still can. Just click the button below to see if you can still order. If you can add one into your cart, you're one of the lucky ones.
Thank you so much for your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Joining me now to discuss former FBI Special Agent Ken Gray. Ken, thanks for being with us this morning. And I want to start with the sheriff saying that they believe he was a lone gunman. Investigators are now going to be looking into his background. What do you think they'll be looking for?
Good morning, Audi. Glad to be with you. The tactical aspect of this case is over. Now they are moving over into the investigation phase and evidence collection phase. And when they are looking to see who he is, what he's about, to try to build a complete picture of who the shooter was.
We mentioned earlier that they had to remove the suspect's body. I want you to tell a little bit more from the sheriff on that.
We scooped up that body, and as far as the preservation of the scene, you know, it's not perfect in this particular situation, but it's something that had to be done. So you have to evaluate each particular circumstance, and at this time, we felt like since the fire was approaching, we needed to scoop up that body.
Should there be any concerns about that? In kind of explaining, look, this is why we had to do it.
Well, extraordinary situations require extraordinary means, and if the body had place and the fire had moved totally into that area, the evidence would have been burned up. So moving the body was a good move in this case. Since the shooter is dead, there's not going to be a prosecution of the shooter, and so preservation of evidence is not the most important thing in this case. I think probably the right move at this point. Nonetheless, were this could be an issue.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
I was the #1 white.
Developments in Idaho, where officials say they deliberately a fire to ambush responders. Firefighters were killed. Another happened. A suspect was dead. Law enforcement officers from the city, county, state, and even federal levels responded to the scene of the shooting.
Some law enforcement right now, there's an active shooter zone. Everybody's trying to immediately. We need immediately.
The CBS News reporter Andres Gutierrez. Andres, what can you tell us about the latest developments on this?
Well, Mugu, since we last spoke about half an hour ago, we now have a name of the suspect, of the shooter in this case. According to the Associated Press, citing law enforcement officials, the shooter in this case is Wes Rowley. According to authorities, yesterday, this individual came to Canfield Mountain to set this fire to lure in the first responders. Just before 1:30 showed up here to Canfield Mountain. You could see heavily wooded, steep slopes out here. The fire continues to burn as of this morning. Just as they were on scene, assessing the situation, trying to figure out how to put out this brush fire and take the fire. Rolling and taking a sniper wooded area, began firing upon them about 20 minutes after they had shown up there on scene. It took a few hours later, around 3:26, they were and found that there was a cell phone that had not been moved. They ended up exchanging some gunfire, according to the suspect. They don't know this guy's life, or if he ended up taking his own life before they found the body around 7:20, because they ended up looking for that information. Had not from the location near where the shooting took place. They sent a chopper up above and spotted the guy there with a rifle right next to him. Because the fire was moving in, they had to recover his body, an autopsy on it, also to see if there's any electronics on him, to try and put together a timeline as to why this all happened in the first place. So they hoisted his body, the rifle up, they'd have a name. We've learned that a lane firefighter, fire and rescue firefighter who lost their lives out here. A third firefighter with Coeur d'Alene was taken to the hospital, underwent condition, but he might still be fighting for his life to speak. So he'll make it through. This community just and it is a community that backs their first responders here. So as they read there are members of the fire service who are now trying to get a handle on this fire. As of last night, 20 acres with no, it's still see there and still smell the smoke as it continues to burn. So track all the developments out here on the ground, and we'll be bringing them to you as soon as we get them. Back to you, Mugo.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your reporting. We really appreciate the updates on the identity.
Professional invoice.